Hello and welcome to the session. Now in this session we will try to understand and install and use the Selenium Grid. So let's get started. Now this is the official documentation of the Selenium Grid. So let us go there and see what it is saying. So there are some other materials you can go through the explanation and all, but so basically in a nutshell, Selenium Grid is used for distributing the test cases and running them parallelly. So if you want to run the test case parallelly, then obviously you will save time, and that is the benefit. So we have to use something called as a hub, and we have to register the nodes to the hub. So kind of a distributed processing system. So what as an end user we need to do is launch a hub, then register the nodes, different nodes to the hub, and as a end user we'll just pass on the particular details to this hub, that as a user I want to execute so and so test cases for so and so browser. Now on every node there will be different set of browsers will be installed based on the business requirement, and just you have to interact with the hub. So hub will internally distribute the test cases to this particular nodes. Okay, now having said that, let's understand so you can use these three techniques here. So Selenium Grid, you can install it on your local system, just like running a jar file, just like another Java application, or Selenium Grid using Selenium Docker. So this is using Selenium Docker is the de facto standard becoming right now, and that will be there in multiple for a longer time and in multiple projects. There's one more thing called as a Selenium Docker, so we will see that one also. So let's see this one first. Now what we need to do is we need to have a separate folder where you need to copy the relevant driver file, exe files, or any driver file, any operating system, and you need to download the jar file. Now I am using a little older jar file called as 3.9.1. 3.141.59 is the latest one, but I'm going to go with this one. This is also matured. This will also solve the purpose. Um, so this can be downloaded from this particular link. Download it and put it in a separate folder. Now open a command prompt, go to the folder where you have this exe file and jar file, and cd to that, and you have to run the command like this. So one command to start the hub. So java minus jar and the jar file name space, and the parameter is minus role hub. So this will start the hub. Okay, so launching the Selenium Grid Hub on so and so port. So now if you see here what it is saying, node should be registered to this particular IP address and URL. So all the nodes should be registered to the hub on this IP address, and this is where the client should be connected. So client should be connected means you can see the things visually. Okay, so this URL is there, /grid /console. If I just refresh it, you see there is nothing as of now mentioned here. Okay, so the moment you start registering the nodes to the hub, the node information will appear here. Okay, so now so client, this is the hub, and now let us start the client. Let us start the node. Let us start registering the node. So how to do that? So once again, uh, open another command prompt and go to that folder, go to the same folder and run this command. So java space -d webdriver chrome.driver and this exe file. So you need to tell the system that this is where you will find the exe file. Then other option is -jar, the jar file name and path. This is what we have done when we started the hub. And another thing is -role node. So we are telling that the role will be node, and when we are telling the it is a node, then we have to tell where is the hub. So hub will be located here. So let me just copy this once again, and this I will run on a separate command prompt. So let me do it. Let me open the hub part, and now this is the node part, and run it. So launching a Selenium grid on port 5555, the node is registered to the hub and ready to use. Okay, so it will take some time to register this on the hub part. Okay, so if you see, registered a node on 5555 and some other prints. Okay, now what we need to do, now again go and check the console part here. So now if I just refresh, you see this node information has come up here. It is saying that there are 5 Chrome and 5 Firefox browsers are available and so on. Now that is one thing. Okay, this we will see later. Now the setup is ready. The Now we need to just execute our code. So we need to know the node URL. So this is the node URL, uh, 192.168.0.152.4444 and wd hub. So this is the URL to which we will be sending the Selenium grid, the Selenium code, and that will actually execute. So let us just run it. Now you see this one thing called here called as a remote web driver. So this is not a traditional like new Chrome driver or new Firefox driver. So we have to use remote web driver. So remote web driver will basically distribute the test cases to this particular URL. Where the Selenium grid is running. Okay, and once the driver is instantiated, then our normal steps. So let's just run it. Okay, so browser is launched and it will do some action as intended. Okay, so it is doing the operation as you mentioned here. So it will, some JavaScript alert, it will click and it will accept the alert, and finally it will close or quit the browser. Okay, so that is done and test case is passed. Now, if you want to see the what has happened to this individual, so if you see these logs, if you see these logs, the communication between node and hub, so this is how it is. Okay. Yeah, so there are a couple of points here. Remember, the moment you close this, close this window, your node and the hub registration will be gone, and it will be again going back to the basic. Now, another thing is in the code. In the code, this URL is important. Why? Because this is where you are communicating your code to the hub. Okay, and you have to use remote web driver. Now, one more point here is. Uh, Yeah, so here we have specifically not said that how many Chrome browsers we wanted on a node. So that can also be specified as an argument here. For example, at the end, you will say number of instances equal to 5, 6, whatever. So that many instances will be available on that node. Okay, but by default, this is more than sufficient, and you can use the same thing. Now let us see the another option. So using Selenium Grid. Using the Docker. So if you're new to Docker, I would ask you to explore the Docker. You have to go to the Docker website and you have to install Docker on your local system on Windows, Mac, or Linux, whichever operating system you have. And what we need to do is we need to basically download a Docker image for Selenium, for using Selenium Docker, and we need to run that image as a container. And in that container, the particular Chrome browser will be installed, and we'll be passing the command to that container, and container will actually internally manage the grid part and the node part automatically. So we need to just run the container and that's it. So how we do that? So how do we launch a Selenium grid, Selenium grid Docker? So if you see this basic configuration, so this is your system. In that we are installing the Docker software or a module, and in that we'll be running the grid container. Okay, Selenium grid container or Selenium grid container. So let us see Selenium Docker. So the commands for that is like this. So yeah, so this documentation is not required. So Dockerize Selenium grid on the local system. So Docker run -dit, port is 4444 colon 4444. So this is the matching port for the hub, And for the node, so internal port of the container is 5900 and external what we are exposing from your current system is 5555. Max instance is 5, so we want 5 instances of Chrome browser or whatever browser. What this is the container name, and this is one fixed option we need to give. So 2 GB is the memory size, and this is the specific container and the Selenium version we would need. Okay, so let us just run it. So if this particular image is not available on your system, Selenium slash this thing, then it will download it. Now similar to this, this is a Chrome image. We will have images for Firefox and other browsers as well. Okay, so I will run this command. So I'm already on the folder and right click and run. So it has run it. So the image is already downloaded on my system. So it has not downloaded fresh. Okay, now let us say Docker ps minus a, so it will give you the list of all the Docker containers running. So there is only one Docker container running, that is this Selenium Grid. Okay, other containers are already exited. Okay, so this is the container I'll be using, and in that container already Selenium Grid hub and Selenium Grid node is already running. Okay, we need not to do anything. We have passed the parameter as 5, so we can run 5 test cases in parallel at one point of time. Now this is a uh, grid container. So we want to see what is happening in the grid container remotely. So it's basically the Dockerized Selenium Grid is basically virtualized system. So we want to connect to the Docker container and see what is happening. So we can do it using command prompt, or also we can do it visually. So for that, we need to install one software called as VNC Viewer. It is just an open source software. Install that software and start a new connection, and you connect with this particular URL. Now localhost 5555, this is coming from here. So if your this port is, let's say, 6666, then you say localhost colon 6666. So I'm using this VNC Viewer, and let me just delete the earlier thing. So what I'll do, I'll start a new connection. So paste here, connect. So just continue for now, and it will ask for a password. So the password is secret. Okay, SECRET, secret. Okay, so it's kind of a remote desktop. Virtually, you can see what is happening on that particular virtual machine, which is the Selenium Chrome Grid virtual machine. Now let us run our code. So remember, here you need to specify this particular IP address. So 4444 WD hub. So this 4444 is coming from this port, whatever you have given from your system. Okay, and slash WD slash hub, and rest of the test case is same. Here also, for any Selenium Grid, obviously you have to use the remote web driver. Okay, now let us just run it and see what is the code which is running actually. So now I have this remote connection already. It will take some time to compile the load, and yeah, so now it has launched the browser inside the container. Okay, this is inside the uh, Selenium grid container. So there the grid hub and node is already launched. We are not doing anything special, so we are just using a Dockerized container. Right, so test case is finished. As of now, there is only one test case, and test case has passed here. So this is an example of running the uh, test using Dockerized Selenium Grid container. Now, practically, obviously, you will not be running everything on your system. So, what happens is, whoever is your lead or network admin or system admin person, they will install this particular Selenium Grid on one system, and just like localhost, they will give you one URL, and you have to just use that URL. Okay, instead of localhost, it will be something like, yeah. So let's say instead of localhost, it will be something like you know. 172 whatever xx dot xxx dot xxx, some URL will be there. So that's it. You have to use that URL and your job is done. So multiple strategies are also applied. Sometimes the Docker container will be running 24 hours and you just have to use it, or if you want you can launch it, do your work and shut it down. So that can also be done. So nothing very fancy, so it's very simple. Okay, remember the password is secret here. That's it. So that is basically uh, very simple to understand this Selenium grid using Selenium Docker. Now, let us see this Selenium. What is the Selenium? The Selenium is also similar to your Selenium Docker, and the advantage is visually you can see what are the tests being executed without using that VNC viewer. And obviously, you can have multiple browsers and other things. So let us see what is the Selenium part, right? So Selenium part, Selenium is also one Docker image only, and just go here and you can see some documentation there. So you need to do is you need to pull these two images, the latest version, then into your Docker. So I have already pulled this two images, then go to a folder and run this command. So Docker run minus minus rm. So minus minus rm means if anything is already running, then you will have to stop that. So let me do one thing here. In my command prompt, I will just stop the earlier container and I will remove the earlier container so that I want to start fresh. So I will say docker ps minus a. So as of now, there is no grid container running. Okay, all the containers are exited, so nothing is running. Okay, now I will run this command. So run minus minus rm ti and name. I will give some name. Port is 4444 and these are the additional options. So you have to give the docker socket here, the corresponding variable, and slash tmp slash video and this particular path. Okay, you can give any folder path from your Windows system, and minus minus privilege. So what happens is using this privilege, right? So if there are some videos being recorded from this Selenium Docker, that can be available, those are available on your local system, and you need to use this image. Okay, so let's just copy this and run it. Okay, remember the ports are very important, this port here. So if something else is running on 4444 on your host system, then you have to change this port. You have to use something a port which is available, freely available. So yeah, I have copied that command and I will just run it. Okay, so some log prints early in early phases. And here also, as a part of this grid installation, you will get one URL and just have to use that URL in your automation code. So data processing agreement, and now you see client should be connected to this WD hub and node should be registering to the 172.17.0.24445. Okay, so this is the URL you should use in your automation. Now let us see this one to check how many nodes are registered, etc. So go here and let's just run it. Right, so you see there's two nodes are automatically registered. It is by default available. Now one more URL is this live. So this is the difference. This is the specialty here. So live. So when I say live, if you see using this using this Selenium Docker image, we can have multiple nodes registered, and what is happening in that node that we can see on a browser. We need not to use that VNC connector and VNC or remote desktop software. In the browser itself, the video will be available here. And so the other URL is this dashboard. So here it will show you, once you run this code, what will happen is it will record a video and it will be available into some folder, the folder what we mentioned here. Okay, this particular path. So the folders you can, the videos you can watch on this particular dashboard. Okay, and you can have some old logs and browser logs and some kind of a logs there, some recording archive which you can refer later. Okay, so not much change, just this URL port will be changed, and we'll be using the same remote web driver and we will run the test. Now I will just run it for now, and once I run it I will just go and see here, like where I will be able to see visually what has happened, which node is being used, and what are the tests which are running. So it might take some time initially. Right, so if you see this particular node is picking up the test case and running it. Now you can play with this option, read only and interact with VNC and other things. It's up to you. Remember, if any node is not being utilized for a certain period, then that will be disconnected. Okay, so test is finished. Yes, so it is finished with exit code 0. Now that's all about the Selenium Grid part, using local and using Docker. Remember, this one is the standard as of now, and we should use the same all the time. Now that's it for this session. Other topics we will see in the subsequent sessions. Thank you.